From the heart of the city too busy to hate. A progressive voice making too much sense for corporate media's comfort. This is The Ron Show, where we the people come first. Here's your host, Ron Roberts.
Oh, what a mess we are heading into if we can't get Washington to work with one another on a bipartisan level. Hi, it's The Ron Show. Thank you so much for listening. Weekdays, 4 to 6 p.m. on Georgia Now, 11 p.m. Progressive Voices via TuneIn or wherever you podcast. I thank you for doing that. What are we looking at here? We're looking at a Friday. In Atlanta, Fridays are normally super hectic because we are the home of the world's busiest airport. We have the confluence of three interstates, two of which join together and weave their way through downtown on their way to the Atlanta airport. Those two interstates flanking the airport. Fridays are just a nightmare. When I plan on getting out of town for the weekend, I have to plan on leaving early on Friday. I'm talking like before lunch, like skipping my Friday lunch group, because if you wait till like now or say after 2:30, 3 o'clock, it's over. It's going to take you a long time to get out. There was a study done recently by the folks at Texas A&M that actually determined that Thursday is the worst day of the week for traffic in Atlanta. But I can tell you, Thursday's awful, Friday's every day is pretty awful in Atlanta for traffic. And I will say this, I don't know if it's the GDOT, the city of Atlanta, maybe both of them. There's been a lot of resurfacing going on lately. That doesn't help. It does in the long range. Don't get me wrong. Please fix the potholes. But in the short term, it's almost as if Georgia Department of Transportation and the city of Atlanta didn't communicate their intentions to resurface major arteries and highways at the same time, because it's happening. And oh my God, getting around, you have to get in the car to cross the street in Atlanta. And it's so unfortunate. I thoroughly believe, I tell people this all the time, both on this show and in person, traffic congestion is going to be the downfall of this city if it's not addressed, and addressed yesterday. It's one of the reasons why I was a bit sour on a second term of Andre Dickens as mayor of Atlanta. However, he won, and now he's talking about transportation, and in a way that gives me some hope. I mean, I feel like he could be like Lucy with the football, but maybe, hopefully not. So I say all this to say that, you know, we're living in an environment where we're watching as the government shutdown has finally hit the airports. The FAA is realizing that we can't function at full staff, at full service, when we have air traffic controllers having to do DoorDash or Uber Eats or Uber or Lyft to gig economy their way through a shutdown without paychecks. And so, as a matter of fact, they've scaled back what is allowable to be in the skies right now. And Atlanta Airport, one of the 40 airports affected, so far, dozens of flights, according to the Atlanta Constitution, dozens of flights have been canceled. I'm sorry, that is CBS Atlanta that gave me that story. CBS Atlanta's Dan Raby reporting that dozens of flights canceled at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport on Friday morning as airlines began complying with the Federal Aviation Administration's order to reduce air traffic by 10% as the government shutdown continues. I'll get to what's happening in Washington with the shutdown in a minute, but first, a little bit about that scaling back of flight services. From CBS News this morning.
At the nation's busiest airports, and with those airlines telling their customers that are scrambling as government-ordered flight reductions kick in. FlightAware says nearly 1,000 flights have already been canceled this morning. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy joined us on CBS Mornings and says the FAA had no choice but to make these cuts. Listen.
We saw controllers working 6 days a week, 10-hour days. That pressure on the controllers were giving us numbers that were not troubling, but were concerning. And so my job is to be preemptive, to take preemptive action based on the data, which is what we've done. We'll share the data later with the airlines, with the Congress. But right now, it's about making the right decisions at the right time to keep people safe. We have to take unprecedented action is because we are in an unprecedented situation with a shutdown.
All right, for more on this, let's go to one of the airports already seeing those cancellations. CBS News correspondent Meg Oliver is standing by at Newark Liberty International Airport in New Jersey. So, Meg, what are you seeing? How are things looking down there? And how does what you're seeing at Newark compare to what folks are seeing across the country?
Great to be with you, Vlad. So far, pretty smooth sailing, I would say, here at Newark. Take a look behind me. We're in the busiest terminal, Terminal C. Barely any lines. It's only taken about 2 minutes to get through security. But remember, this all just started with the 3% reduction in flights at 6 a.m. this morning. So far, less than 50 flights have been canceled here. JFK and LaGuardia are faring about the same. We do know, and I want to put this into context for you just a little bit, just roughly over 25,000 flights are scheduled to depart across the country. Out of those flights, 748 will be cut today. Many of the airlines are saying that this is going to impact regional flights much more than those bigger hubs. I talked with one woman who is flying to South Bend, Indiana this morning to see the Navy Notre Dame game with her son last night. She wasn't taking any chances. She switched her flight to Chicago and rented a car. A lot of people are anxious if they have flights this weekend. We've been talking to people across the country. Let's hear what they had to say.
I was invited back to Alabama for Thanksgiving, but I decided, I'm not going to take my chances.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to tell my job that I'm going to be late, which is going to impact me in so many other ways. But yeah.
So you're just fingers crossed that everything.
Yes, I'm praying that they get this together because this is horrible.
It crossed my mind, like, should I really go? It's for fun. But I'm going to go and chance it and be at work on Tuesday.
So what can you do if you do have arrangements to fly this weekend? Start contacting your airlines today.
Yeah.
See if you can rebook, get on a different flight. They are working with people, waiving fares. A lot of people, though, they're just opting to drive altogether. Hertz told us they have seen a 20% increase in one-way rentals this weekend. Vlad, everybody knows somebody traveling in the next few weeks. My mom, Nana, she's in California. She's supposed to be coming back here on Sunday. I'm a little concerned. She has to get through a regional flight first before she hits LAX. So fingers crossed for everybody trying to venture out this weekend.
Back to Dan Raby's reporting at CBS Atlanta. As of 10 a.m., 78 inbound and outbound flights had been canceled at the world's busiest airport, according to data found from FlightAware. More than 60 flights have reported delays. Here's where this is where me, the transit guy. I'm a transit nerd. I'm not gonna lie. This is where I go. How did we not expect this to happen at some point in time? How many times do we have to be warned that our reliance on such a mode of travel, and as the singular most popular mode of travel for long distance travel in this country, how have we not learned that relying on that one mode so much, it's something, I mean, it's not a monopoly. I get it. It's not a monopoly because there are several different choices you can make within that industry. But that industry is in and of itself something of a monopoly in the long distance travel game, right? Because in the United States in 2025, there aren't many other options except drive it yourself. And that's not expedient. It's hard on the body. It's hard on the mind. Nobody likes driving. It's a time suck. The time you should be spending with your loved ones or doing things or both are instead spent behind the wheel. It's asinine. Sorry. It's just asinine that it's 2025 and we still to this day, I mean, we've been dreaming about connecting this country with passenger rail, quality passenger rail, for as long as I can remember. I've said for quite a while, I know in the aftermath of the November 2024 elections, Democrats, for example, have lost their appetite for thinking big, dreaming big. This is one of those thinking big, dreaming big moments where someone should be saying to the American people, we wouldn't be going through this if we had high-speed rail as well. Like, you would have an alternative. And, oh, by the way, there probably wouldn't be as many flights in the air in the first place. Nah, I know the airline industry ain't crazy about that. But hear me out. Maybe the airline industry would be kind of crazy about this. I mentioned this before. This is an example that I cite all the time. Air Canada is getting into the high-speed rail business in Canada because they're tired of losing money on flights from Puddle Jump, Saskatchewan to Edmonton, Alberta. They're tired of these feeder flights The kind that, for example, you might need to get from Albany to Atlanta to go to Atlanta to Chicago. The kind you might need, my hometown of Augusta, lovely little airport. Why do we have one? You're halfway between Columbia and Atlanta, essentially. I mean, do all three of those spots on the map need an airport? Apparently in 2025, United States, yes. But rationally, logically, no. If we had a viable rail network in this country, if we ever had the appetite to invest in high-speed rail in this country, we would take vehicles off the streets. There would be less gridlock in our nation's hub cities, like Atlanta. We would have fewer of these puddle jumper feeder flights in the air, which would help bring down the cost of gas because the demand wouldn't be as high. Actually, for both of those reasons, the demand wouldn't be as high. We'd be burning less fuel, sitting in gridlock, and people would be getting to and from their places in relatively speedy times and able to do things to entertain themselves or to better themselves or to work, be productive while traveling. But here we are in 2025, and instead we're embroiled in another shutdown. We're at the whim of, and I'm not mad at them, we're at the whim of air traffic controllers who aren't getting paid, who need to go run a DoorDash to make ends meet in the interim while we're in the midst of this shutdown. I'm just asking, in 2025, is this the time we can finally start having a conversation about our reliance on so few transportation options to get us from point A to point B, whether it's just a few hours, to many hours, to just a couple of counties away, to a state or two or three or four or five away. Now, I would think that the government shutdown will have ended in time for Thanksgiving. But what if it doesn't? It's that John Candy movie all over again, except no planes, just trains and automobiles. And even then, only so many trains. We only have viable train transportation in the Northeast corridor of this country. And I'm not dismissing Amtrak, okay? I love Amtrak. Amtrak's a fun way to travel. But you can't get from Atlanta to St. Louis without going, get this, Atlanta, New Orleans, I think it goes to St. Louis from New Orleans, or Atlanta, D.C., New York, Chicago, St. Louis. Like, there's no direct route. There's no diagonal route from Atlanta to anything. You can go from Atlanta to New Orleans out west, or to the Midwest, or you can go Atlanta to Washington, D.C., up to New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, et cetera, and so on. And there's talk, there's a lot of talk about Atlanta getting a new Amtrak station. Okay, great. But still, the network itself is kind of useless if there's nothing else that you can do except go from Atlanta to New Orleans or Atlanta to D.C. And, oh, by the way, whereas it's like a 6.5, 7 hour drive to New Orleans, it's like 13, 14 hours on the train. Seriously, because they don't even own the rails. They have to make way for it's either Norfolk Southern or CSX. One of the two owns the rail rights. And so when the owner of the rail rights needs to move goods, Amtrak has to get off to the side and let them. It's infuriating. And it's no better in the corridor heading northeast either. Until you get up into the, until you get into the Virginia area, again, you have to get off to the side. That, what is it, like 9-10 hour drive? It's way longer. It's an overnight trip to Washington, D.C. from Atlanta on a train. Because we haven't had the appetite or somehow connected the dots to realize that there's a necessity for faster, higher speed rail travel in these United States. When are we going to wake up and have this aha moment? Here's what'll happen. The shutdown will end in the next few days, right? I think Democrats are starting to maneuver and put Republicans in a position where, we'll do the continuing resolution if And we'll accept your 1-year extension of ACA subsidies. But now the GOP's starting to realize, hey, wait a minute, that's just in time for the midterm elections in 2026, and we just got shellacked because of that in 2025, and now they don't want to do it. Democrats calling their bluff. But still, this will probably be resolved in some manner or time frame here pretty soon. And this won't be such an issue for Americans who are sitting in the airports waiting and seeing that their flights are getting canceled. And this too shall pass, and we'll move on to something else that we need to focus our attention on. The cost of the Walmart turkey package that Donald Trump swears is just as much as it was last year, except it's shrinkflation. Now you know what shrinkflation is, don't you, Donald? Mm-hmm. That's my thing. This too shall pass, and we'll stop worrying about only having to rely on air travel for our long-distance traveling. But I'm telling you, we need not let this moment pass without reminding ourselves we don't have high-speed rail, and this is why it's such a problem. It's The Ron Show. Georgia Now, Progressive Voice via TuneIn or wherever you podcast. Second half of this hour, my friend Jay Bookman, opinion writer at the Georgia Recorder, joins me with all of that optimism he has after the Tuesday 2025 Democratic wins at the ballot box. He's really optimistic. I'm a little more skeptical, but maybe he'll win me over. He seems to think that Democratic wins since 2020 aren't just anomalies. I think there's always asterisks, though. Like there's asterisks in the 2020 elections because, well, we had so many easy ways to vote. Like we relaxed a lot of the things that would keep people from voting. And then we had poor candidate choices on the Republican side in 2020 and in 2022, right? But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, we'll chat with Jay Bookman in just a few minutes. Well, I want to stay on transit, though, and I've only got about 4 minutes here. I saw this from WSB Radio, actually. After his landslide victory on Tuesday, Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens says the city must find solutions for the terrible traffic motorists face. Mister, let's divert BeltLine rail from the east side where it's clogged up the most over there, pedestrian-wise anyway, on the BeltLine, and instead get rid of all of the feasibility studies and impact studies that have been done for that and start all over again, setting us back 7-10 years and start looking at South Side. BeltLine rail needs to get done, right? It just needs to, that in and of itself will alleviate a lot of the traffic woes in this country. A viable network of in-city transport would certainly help with Atlanta traffic. Anyway, Mayor Dickens, according to the article here, says too many people are disconnected from where they need to go. He says traffic is not just an issue in Atlanta, it's a regional problem. He is chair of the Atlanta Regional Commission, by the way. He says lots of folks are just sitting in traffic all over Metro Atlanta. We need to have a regional solution to connectivity that's expanding MARTA, improving MARTA. Yes, we do. Get Cobb to accept it. Get Gwinnett to accept it. Hell, get North Fulton to accept it. Dickens says too many people are disconnected from where they need to go. Recent report from the 2025 Urban Mobility Report from the Texas A&M Transportation Institute says the average commuter wasted 87 hours sitting in traffic in 2024. Y'all, that's like nearly 4 days. Putting the city in the top 10 for traffic congestion among major metros in the United States. Study also found Thursday ranks as the most congested day for motorists in Atlanta. I think I mentioned that. That's it. That's the whole article. There's not much more to it. But no, the mayor's right. Quality of life in Atlanta and in Metro Atlanta, outside the city limits, is deeply impacted. I know that the 87 hours wasted in the year are spread out over 250 work days, right? But could you imagine if the boss told you, hey, you know what? We're just going to add 4 extra vacation days to your vacation allotment this year. You would probably kiss that person, right? Inappropriately or otherwise. I'm not HR. But you would surely think that person is your hero. Oh my God, what a game changer. What I can do now with my family with those extra 4 days. Okay, so it's not an extra 4 days, but an extra 87 hours spread out over 250 days is impactful. And it's not just the 87 hours, it's all of the time that you spend in traffic, along with the 87 hours that you could be putting towards, I don't know, helping your kid with their homework, participating as a coach in your child's sports activity, cooking healthier meals, hell, taking better care of yourself. Oh, what would that do for health insurance in this country? If we were healthier individuals, not sitting on our butts in traffic, but able to get in a jog because we didn't have to spend all that time in the vehicle, stewing, staring at taillights. Here's the problem. This country has been won over by glitzy car ads and car-centric television and movies, honestly. I need somebody to get on that. Why don't we write some really evocative train travel and subway travel storylines into TV shows and movies? And MARTA and Amtrak, you need to step up your marketing. All I know is Americans' lives aren't getting better. We're wasting a whole lot of time sitting in traffic and waiting at the airport. And oh, by the way, not really seeing the country the way it should be seen. Anyway, it's The Ron Show. Back after this with Jay Bookman from Georgia Recorder.
Archived audio, blogs, social media links, and more, all in one place. Log on at ronshowatl.com.
Jay Bookman of the Georgia Recorder filing a piece nearly immediately after the results of the Tuesday elections, which saw Democrats in Georgia flip 2 Public Service Commission seats, giving the GOP now a slimmer, but still a majority, by a 3-2 margin. Bookman writing, maybe what happened in Tuesday's election was an anomaly. You could certainly make that case, as many Georgia Republicans have tried to do. It was, after all, an odd-year election with relatively low turnout for 2 low-profile statewide races. So even if the resulting margins were spectacular, Democrats won 2 seats on the 5-member PSE commission, both by 25 percentage points. Maybe it was just an anomaly. Joe Biden's 2020 victory in the red state of Georgia was another such anomaly, so rare and unusual that to this day Donald Trump refuses to accept that it happened. Raphael Warnock's victory in a special election runoff in 2021, making him the first black Democrat elected to the U.S. Senate from the South, was also an anomaly, as was Senator John Ossoff's runoff win that year. Georgia hadn't had a Democratic senator in almost 20 years, but suddenly we had 2 in the same year. So surely that too was just a fluke, the result of a rare confluence of political events at the national level that is unlikely to be repeated here in Georgia. Bookman continues. Of course, Warnock then won re-election in 2022. Was that too just an anomaly, a one-time event explained away by the GOP's mistake in running Herschel Walker, a man who made his name on the football field as its candidate? It's not as if Georgia Republicans would ever repeat that unforced error, right? Bookman continues, they would never again try to nominate someone else whose only qualification was football fame, someone like Derek Dooley. No, they would never, Jay Bookman writes. But anomalies are funny things. Considered in isolation, they might not mean much, but when you get a string of them, one anomaly after another, they cease to be anomalies at all. They become a trend. We also have other anomalies to consider. For example, today we have a former Georgia Republican lieutenant governor who has switched parties and is now running for governor as a Democrat. That's pretty rare, right? When was the last time a party switcher actually ran for governor and won? Bookman then reminds us, well, Sonny Perdue did it in 2002. That was an anomaly until Nathan Deal did it again in 2010. The anomalies became a trend. We also have MAGA Queen Marjorie Taylor Greene representing Georgia's 14th congressional district, who is suddenly and loudly condemning her own party's leadership. She is slamming it for its failure to reopen the government and for its failure to address a looming crisis in health insurance affordability. In a startling appearance this week on The View, where Greene was greeted warmly by the liberal host, she called the GOP's performance embarrassing. Jay Bookman says, my mother, who lives out of state, is a big fan of The View. What the heck happened to that woman? Mom asked me this week. Did she get struck by lightning or something? Bookman responded, no, Mom. I think it was space lasers or maybe chemtrails. The easy short-term conclusion from all this is that Democrats have momentum going into the 2026 midterms, both here in Georgia and nationwide. Bookman says, while I think that's true, something deeper and more profound is also going on. A generation is finally ceding power that it has clung to for too long, necessary because we face new problems that our elders do not comprehend. The political establishments of both parties are crumbling, and frustration with government has become so profound that Americans of all ideologies find themselves open to solutions that previous generations had rejected. In a recent YouGov poll, for example, just 13% of Americans said they approved of how Congress is performing. And that's just not sustainable. Change is coming, he says, and fast. Bookman writes, what we see happening in Georgia then is just a small part of what's happening nationally, globally. Coalitions are breaking apart and new ones will be forming. Old ways of understanding are being tossed aside. As structures and systems are torn down, new ones must rise to replace them. Trump and MAGA offer one such alternative, one they apparently intend to impose by force if necessary. Bookman's column concludes, Tuesday's results offer us hope that other alternatives will emerge and prove more viable. But in a world where everything seems an anomaly, who the hell knows? Joining me to discuss his optimism, and that's how I see it. It's optimism. God knows we need some optimism. Jay Bookman from the Georgia Recorder. Jay, good to talk to you, man. How have you been?
I'm doing fine. As you say, a little more optimistic after Tuesday.
It really was nice waking up on Wednesday. To put in context what it was like on that Wednesday versus the Wednesday after the November election, I mean... That day I had to get up and do a show too, but I really didn't want to. And on Wednesday this week, I'm like, yeah, let's do this. Let's do a show. So anyway.
I'm normally an optimistic person. That optimism has been severely tested in recent years, but Tuesday was good. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I've sort of taken a little bit more of a cautionary approach, but like after reading your piece and you started out with anomalies, and I thought, okay, yeah, that was definitely an anomaly. And then you went on to another anomaly, and then the anomaly started adding up, and I'm like, oh, he baited us. He totally baited me. I'm totally in on this now, and I was fully in the boat, flopping in the cooler. You don't think Democratic success in the state of Georgia is necessarily an anomaly, though, do you?
No, not anymore. I mean, the column, as you mentioned, to start off, you could explain Tuesday in isolation as an anomaly. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have to, because two Democrats won statewide by at least 25 percentage points.
Okay.
That's an anomaly.
Yeah.
But then you start looking back and you go, well, Joe Biden carried the state in the presidential race in 2020. That was an anomaly. We have two Democratic senators. That was an anomaly. You had Raphael Warnock winning a second statewide Senate race. That was an anomaly. And when you get anomaly after anomaly after anomaly, you don't have anomalies anymore. That's a trend. You can't look at these things. You should look at them in isolation, but also as part of the larger pattern. And I think when you look at the larger pattern in Georgia, we're certainly not a blue state by any means, but we're a purple state for sure.
Yeah, I've sort of been wondering if the downward trend in the film and television industry here in Georgia, we've seen a lot of that work go overseas and outside, back to California, for example. I've been wondering if that was going to soften any cushion that Democrats might have had, but I think those numbers are probably mitigated, maybe. So if this is the case, if there is this trend, then we have to look at some of the opportunities that Democrats missed out on and wonder, were those anomalous? Like Stacey Abrams not being able to crack the glass ceiling in 2022, or not Joe Biden, but Kamala Harris not winning in 2024. Were those instead anomalies?
No, I mean, again, we're not a blue state; we're a purple state. So you're going to expect to have some losses too. I think probably the Republicans, we'll see. But I mean, Tuesday does change my perspective on it a bit. But prior to Tuesday, I would say Republicans still have a significant advantage in the state. But Democrats, depending on the national environment and the quality of candidates, Democrats have had a chance to succeed, as we've seen. Maybe now it's that inherent Republican advantage. Maybe that has disappeared. We'll see. I mean, the future holds the answer.
Yeah. The 2026 polling seems to show that John Ossoff has a pretty sizable advantage, and I imagine maybe him being the incumbent helps with that in some respects because he does have a track record and he has some bipartisan bona fides. It's really hard to make out what any polling would say about a Dem v. Republican gubernatorial situation because both sides have, I would say, pretty hotly contested primaries to hash out. But you wrote a couple of weeks ago that you seem to lean into a generational situation occurring on the left where perhaps a Jason Estevez via Michael Thurman situation comes to bear. Did you watch the politically Georgia gubernatorial confab the other night?
I have not. That is on my list to do this weekend.
Yeah. It's weird. I feel like the more I listen to Jeff Duncan talk, the more I think he is sincere, but it's a thawing. It's not a completely thawed out, piece of beef ready to put on the grill yet. And I imagine a lot of Democrats think like that too. Does a Jeff Duncan candidacy aid Democrats if he were to win the nomination in a purple state, or does it hinder his support from the grassroots on the left? Which is the stronger pull, you think?
I don't know. I mean, we'll see. Even when he was a Republican, he was considered a bit of an odd duck Republican. He came out of nowhere to win that lieutenant governor's race. And even among Republicans, they were like, well, who is this guy? It's hard to say. I think if you could look at it one way, if he's the nominee, that's a pretty bad assessment of the Democratic bench. If they have to import a lieutenant governor from the Republicans to be the nominee. On the other hand, that Democratic bench has, I'm surprised that so few Democrats who ran in previous cycles are not running this time. They passed up the opportunity. Estevez has a chance he's going to have the opportunity to prove himself. So
the polling that we keep seeing shows him far off in the distance. Obviously, I think Keisha Lance Bottoms benefits simply from name recognition, although she never gets above 40% either, and we all know that you need the 50 to make this happen. But the Michael Thurman race, when you watch the Politically Georgia event from the other night, I come away a lot more impressed with him than I would have beforehand. But I think the age thing is going to give pause, and I think his tenure as DeKalb County CEO, a lot of people look at that as a feather in his cap. I look at that and think there was a lot of stuff that was left undone that the current CEO and DeKalb County government have to contend with. Water issues, for example, and then the blowback from the grassroots with the Atlanta Public Safety Training Facility that he was crucially and vitally important in seeing to bear.
Yeah, there was an interesting case. As I wrote a couple weeks ago, people around the state know him, but he's been out of the public eye, statewide anyway, for quite a while. The DeKalb CEO case, that's a very difficult job. When he came into it, it was even more difficult. I think he didn't. As you note, he did not solve every problem that DeKalb County had. Because that's not going to happen like that. But I think he left it a better run place than when he came in.
Okay, that's one. You know what? And in the conversation that he had Wednesday night, he made a salient case from when he was in charge of DFACS as well, and some of the work that he did there. I think that I know that's very in the weeds sort of stuff, but I think that's important. I think that's an important sales pitch for him to hone and craft the messaging on if he's going to win the nomination.
Yeah, he has proven himself to be a good manager. Okay. And even the Republicans in the state will acknowledge that privately, if not publicly. But the question is that what the Democratic voter is looking for in this era?
Yeah. I guess fundraising will be pretty important for him when it's all said and done. Keisha is clearly raking in the money outside the state and has fronted some of her own money. Jason Estevez has had a pretty healthy fundraising efforts. I mean, is it worth mentioning the Derek Jacksons, the Ruo Romans so far? I like the energy coming from Rua's camp. I like the volunteer army that she's put together. It just hasn't showed up at polling yet, and we don't know what her fundraising numbers are going to look like yet.
Right. I think they would have a hard time gaining foothold, getting some traction. But we'll see. I mean, it's possible, but highly unlikely in my view.
Yeah.
One thing about Estevez, if you look, his ability he's got a lot of endorsements from Democratic politicians around the state who they are points of entry for him to go into those communities and get introduced to the local Democratic structure, the activists, the people who vote in Democratic primaries. People don't appreciate the value of that. I mean, I think it's also a testament to, people who work with him, have worked with him at the state capitol when he was a state legislator. They speak highly of him. So,
well, and at the Atlanta School Board as well. I mean, that's not nothing.
Correct.
And there is the lack of backing that I think Keisha's getting from former Atlanta cohorts and city officials that I think is sort of telling as well.
Yes, I think she would be. I think Democrats have an opportunity to elect the next governor of Georgia, but they wouldn't waste that opportunity if she's the nominee.
Yeah. I'm going to take a quick break, and I want to come back, and I want to pick your brain a little bit about Marjorie Taylor Greene. I've spent a lot of time on this show. I'm just fascinated. I'm just fascinated. Anyway, we're with Jay Bookman, who is very optimistic after Tuesday's statewide PSC results for the Democratic Party here in the state of Georgia. We'll talk a little bit more about that and Marjorie Taylor Greene when the Rancho returns on Georgia Now and Progressive Voices via TuneIn and wherever you podcast. Jay Bookman joining us from the Georgia Recorder. He penned a piece with a lot of optimism. He writes that Tuesday's elections in Georgia and throughout the rest of the country show that change is coming in fast. And hand to heaven, I hope your words are on God's ears. It's certainly a better feeling to wake up after we did on Wednesday morning, feeling like there's a little bit of bounce in the step. Institutionally, there's a lot to overcome at the national level. It's interesting to watch as Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think, has sort of figured out. I said for the last couple of weeks now, I feel like she's done some on-the-job training and she started to realize, oh, this is how things do and don't work, and this is why they don't work. I think there's been a little bit of self-actualization that her party is part and parcel to why things can't get done in Washington. What have you made of the maturation process of Marjorie Taylor Greene?
I don't trust it.
Yeah?
Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
She's not a trustworthy person. I think the transition we're seeing is probably a result of personal ambition squashed than some great ideological enlightenment.
Sour grapes.
She saw herself as a potential U.S. senator. The Republican establishment in Washington said, no, you're not. We will not back you for that. She said, okay, well, then I'm to herself and to others, apparently. Well, I'm going to run for governor. No, you're not going to do that either. We will not support you. And she went from, I've been a good soldier. I've been trying to play the game within the Republican circles, and the good old boys won't let me in. So now what do I do?
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're seeing is now what do I do? Here's what I can do. She's been smarter than I thought she could be, but we'll see.
I find the irony in all this, I think the Marjorie Taylor Greene that we see now is actually the more electable Marjorie Taylor Greene at the statewide level. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. But, next week she's going to come out and say some totally deranged thing. I give her credit as a somewhat honest person.
Mm-hmm. Whether she's right or wrong, no, you're right. I agree with that. She says what's on her mind.
She says what's on her mind, but I don't think she has any depth of knowledge.
Well, I'll give you that because she said on Bill Maher's show last Friday she didn't know that the Rothschilds were Jewish.
Correct.
Yeah, she wasn't able. Again, a lot of on-the-job training, a lot of learning on the job while being a congresswoman. That seems to be. Here's my question: I don't know.
Just a few weeks ago, she was chairing a subcommittee hearing into chemtrails.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I mean, she's not giving up. That's
not giving up all the QAnon stuff.
Is that conspiratorial mindset?
I just wonder which is the act: the bombastic chasing David Hogg down the sidewalk act, or this.
I think they're both acts. That's the point. When I said I don't trust her, that's why. I think they're both acts.
Mm-hmm. I gotcha.
Because I don't think you go from one to the other that quickly.
I see.
So we'll see.
So we know that after the November elections, Democrats had hit like an all-time low when it comes to public approval, and they'll probably get a boost from Tuesday, seeing what happened in New York City and in New Jersey and in Virginia and throughout the rest of the country. Here in Georgia, the two PSC flips. There'll probably be a bounce in approval. But is this the Democrats doing the right things, or is this sometimes, like in Washington's case, the Democrats just staying out of the way and letting the Republicans make all the mistakes and the American people figuring it out? See, this wasn't us.
I think they're doing the right things. I've thought for quite a while, for several months, that the whole government shutdown, that the Democrats had a plan, and it seems to be playing out. They're defending this shutdown as a way to try to help people when those Obamacare subsidies cease.
Yeah, I've been worried that the American people would be more assuaged by the temporary pain that they're going through right now to not understand that this is about a longer-term pain that the Democrats are trying to help them avoid.
They have managed to sustain it long enough that we are now in the period where people are going to start looking at what their health insurance rates are going to be, and they're going to say, "Holy cow! This is what the Democrats have been talking about for months."
Yeah, that's true. We are in open enrollment, that's for sure.
So I think they looked ahead and said, "That's coming. Let's have a fight in which that is our goal." And then when people start to experience what we've been warning them about, that has an effect on how they perceive things.
I've been wondering if Tuesday's results would affect the shutdown and make the Republicans a little more eager to come to the bargaining table. You're hearing some back channel talk about that, but like Speaker Johnson he said yesterday that the ACA subsidies would not come to the House floor. I mean, he is stubbornly obstinate about this.
Well, if they came to the floor, they would have the Republican base would go bananas if Republicans voted to save Obamacare.
But he even said, even if the Senate did, I mean, and he's got to know that, like, Democrats we've been saying this for a month now. Democrats are saying, no, this is why we're doing it. This has to be dealt with.
Right. I don't think it's going to be dealt with.
Wow.
I would be very surprised if that is dealt with. I don't think the Republican coalition can withstand Republicans taking that kind of vote. And I think Mike Johnson has come to that same conclusion as well.
So he's willing.
So I don't think it's going to be resolved. I think those subsidies are not going to come back. People are going to be hurting. And that's going to have an impact on what happens in 2026.
Yeah. So then the shutdown was for what then? Just to prove the point for Democrats?
To highlight a point, yes.
I gotcha. So the suffering is about the long-term impacts of what the 2026 election will be like.
Well, in this regard, I think Democrats are going to have to. There will be a deal cut probably before Thanksgiving, because when people start flying back home and too many missed paychecks and
I guess
cut back and. So I think it's going to be resolved, but the Obamacare subsidies will not be part of the solution.
I guess my concern is after it's all said and done, Americans might look at Democrats and go, well, if we went through all that suffering and then you guys didn't come up with a deal, then what was the suffering for? And then that's when I wonder who the American people blame.
Well, so far they're blaming the Republicans.
That is true. You're absolutely right. All right, Jay Bookman, Georgia Recorder, opinion writer. His new commentary, Tuesday's elections in Georgia and elsewhere show that change is coming and fast. We'll include that in the show notes at ronshowatl.com. Jay, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate that.
No problem. Enjoyed your conversation.
Hour number 1 in the books. Back for more in just a few. It's Georgia Now. Progressive Voices via TuneIn. This is The Ron Show.
From the heart of the city too busy to hate, a progressive voice making too much sense for corporate media's comfort. This is The Ron Show, where we the people come first. Here's your host, Ron Roberts.
Thank you so much for listening. Georgia Now, weekdays 4 to 6 p.m., 11 p.m. Progressive Voices via TuneIn. So we're still basking in the afterglow of Tuesday night's Democratic victories throughout the country, notably here in the state of Georgia with 2 Public Service Commission seats flipped. Last summer, I got to sit down with new Democratic Party Chair Charlie Bailey, and I want to see if anything that he said that day is resonating still today with these wins. Charlie, thanks for joining me. I appreciate that.
Ron, thanks for having me, man.
So how whirlwind of an existence has it been since being elected to the state party chair, or were you prepared for this?
Well, I don't know that you can fully prepare. The way I've kind of analogized it to others is think you've done business with a company for 20 or over 20 years. You know some of the people in the company and everything. You've done joint ventures, and then snap your fingers one day, now you're the CEO of the company. And you've got 17 staff, none of which have worked for you before, and you don't know where the bathroom is, much less the budget. And so it is a lot. I knew it would be a lot, but that's okay. That's the way these things go. But I'm excited. We're already making some changes and making some progress, and looking to finish out my assessment and everything in the next couple of weeks. And but we've really hit the ground running, and I'm excited about it.
That's an interesting word you used, assessment. I know when I would take over a radio station back when I worked in radio, moved in, programming a station. You've got you start day one. You don't really have time to assess, but you do need to assess at the same time. So you're kind of walking and chewing gum, aren't you?
Yeah, no. I mean, because you can't just stop.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Life is going on.
Everything we're doing, we're raising money. We're communicating, we've set up volunteer volunteer phone banks for people to volunteer about the PSC primary that's going on right now. And so we're going, our voter protection is still going. Everything's still going, but as the plane is flying, you're also...
You got to tinker with it.
You're also figuring out what you got and what you need to improve. And normally, like in business or like a law firm or something like that, that would be a months-long process. We ain't got months, so you have to turbocharge it. And it's a lot, but that's okay, That's what we got, and we're going to keep moving forward.
So having off-cycle races like the Public Service Commission race, and here in Atlanta we've got municipal elections, is it sort of a blessing to have it in the immediate aftermath of the November 2024 results, do you think?
Say that one more time, sorry.
Do you think it's sort of a blessing that we have these races in 2025 to sort of just kind of pick ourselves up and get back at it? We could sit here and wallow for 18 months or get back to work. I think there was a good collective mindset within the American population, particularly on the left of center, who were not Trump voters, for about 90 days, there was like a prolonged mourning period, it felt like.
Right. No, I think so. People want to know what they can do, understandably, as we're facing, a party that has just become an authoritarian party. Not to mention the fact they don't give a damn about working people, which has been a trait they've always had, but now they've added this authoritarianism to it. And people are worried, and they're scared, and they're angry. And so making sure they know, hey, there's not only can you do something right now, call your congresspeople, particularly call the senators. Like, we know our senator's going to do the right thing, but still call those people, come out to the protests, like the next one coming up June 14th, the No King's Day. That stuff matters. Don't let anybody tell you that doesn't matter. These folks in office, even the Republicans, they pay attention to that. You know who also pays attention to that? Judges and justices on the Supreme Court. They are absolutely aware of the public rising and saying, this is not acceptable, this is not our country. And so in that same vein, there's things you can do right now, but expressing your displeasure with what Republicans are doing in this country having, as you said, an outlet for that. If you're in Virginia, you got the governor's race in New Jersey, right? But here we've got the PSC races, 2 of them in November. Obviously, the primary is going on right now. Once we have our nominees, we'll get behind them and go forward to November. And there's also a special election for the state Senate, which is in the northern suburbs. We have one candidate, and there's multiple Republicans. Deborah Shigley's our one candidate, so we're behind her, obviously. So, yes, I think giving people something to do and say, listen, they have not, Donald Trump and Burt Jones and these Republicans do not control every aspect of life in our country. And we have voice, and we have power, and that is in your vote. I think it's powerful for people to be reminded of that. And I hope they come out in November, in August in that special election, but in November to say that.
And the PSC races are really impactful on the wallet, on the bottom line. And I think that's the sort of message that voters are hearing from these candidates. That we're complaining about the cost of groceries, the cost to live, your electric, your utility bill that comes in every month. Georgia Power's been coming back for more and more and more every year, because the Public Service Commission has been rubber stamping that. Right. This is an opportunity to directly impact your monthly expenses.
100%. 100%.
So how has the Republican Party sort of gotten away with not being the party of the working class? And you and we agree on that. But the American people don't necessarily see the Democratic Party as being the party of the working class. How did the Democratic Party lose that mantle over, I'd say, the last 25 years or so?
Well, that's a big question. I don't know that it's. I don't know if I'd phrase it as lost.
Okay.
I would say there has been some lost ground. I think that's what the data tells us.
Clearly shows us, yeah.
There's been some lost ground, and it's not just one demographic, right? It is across racial and ethnic lines, and so, I think, frankly, sometimes Democrats, and this is not just a Georgia thing, this is all across the country, have not expressed adequate anger in solidarity with the anger that the people feel.
Yeah.
People know they're being screwed. And I would say it's my job as chair to make sure they know who to blame. But if you approach it like, well, that's not that big of a deal, or you don't mirror the frustration and the righteous anger they have, that the fact that the Republicans have been in charge in this state for 22 years.
Yeah.
And the American dream is less attainable now than it was 22 years ago.
You're talking to a realtor.
So it is our job. I mean, if we don't show that we recognize that, then folks are not going to think we're real.
You're right. 1,000%. And it's the tightrope walk that I think Democrats have to go through when Obama's in the White House or when Biden's in the White House. And the economic numbers aren't terrible, but not rosy at the same time. There are still real emotions happening at kitchen table when they're discussing those family budget issues. Yet even when the Democrats have the highest mantle of authority in government, to be honest with the American people that, okay, we're moving in the right direction, but we do understand things aren't perfect, or we're not there yet. We got to keep. I don't understand messaging. Sometimes it seems like there seems to be a little bit of dissonance. And I think when you go back to 2016, for example, you mentioned about the palpable anger and showing that frustration. We had a movement that was showing that frustration in both parties. We had populist movements in both parties, and the Republican Party got overtaken by that populist movement. And the Democratic Party snuffed it out, in my opinion, and really I don't think has made up that ground since. You are in charge of one of the 50 states Democratic parties in this country, and I know it's cat herding. You have to get the pro-Gaza, the Jewish American vote, people of color, white suburban, obviously progressives. To me, we talk about going after those independent voters. People forget that there are independent voters left of the party as well who have left the party since 2016 that need to be won back over. How do you corral all of that?
So it seems like a huge problem, but I think the answer is quite simple, honestly.
I like hearing that, too, because Americans like simple answers.
I think sometimes, and it comes from a good place, Democrats, we want to have 1,500 messages for 1,500 variations of what we think people are, which is honestly like kind of a little bit of offensive. Like, how are you going to look at someone and look at wherever they fit, their education, the color of their skin, their religion, and presume to know the micro message that I think that's completely foolish. It's not 1,500 messages. It ain't 15 messages. It's one message to everybody. There's not a rural message and an urban message and a suburban message and a message for black folks. No. It is this. The vast majority of people in this country, the vast majority of people in this state wake up every day and they worry about, is my kid safe, or my grandkid, or my nephew? How are they doing in school? If I get a hospital bill, can I pay it? Can I save up a little bit of money, go on a vacation, save up for retirement? And as I said before, they know those things are less attainable.
Yeah.
They know that. They know that in many places their neighborhoods are not as safe. They know their kids, particularly in this state, we'll just talk about some of the things we're dealing with. 12 hospitals have closed in the last 12 years. Of the 30 rural hospitals that are open today, 18 are at risk of closure. And we've got a tax code that the Republicans under the Gold Dome have written that reward wealth, the very wealthy, big corporations, billionaires, and whoever the latest lobbyist was to buy them a steak and a bourbon.
Yeah.
Those are the issues everyone cares about. That is where, and that is the heart of the Democratic Party. It is, I've never understood, even if we have the presidency and we get power, I've never understood, it is not a hard pivot to say, we're fighting for this, we got this done, but these forces are still arrayed against the people of Georgia, and as long as I have power, I'm going to fight back against them. And you know what? We're going to raise taxes. We're going to close the carried interest loophole. We're going to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. And if you're a bank that wants to operate in the state of Georgia, for instance, you're going to have to keep your credit, the interest rates down to 10%. And if you can't do that on credit cards, get to stepping. You don't get access to our people in this state. It is not hard at all to acknowledge what we are fighting for, and the fact that passing Obamacare was a massive achievement. There are millions of people that are alive that wouldn't be because of Obamacare. Millions of people that have health care. Folks that have a daddy or a mama that might have lost that person. It is not inconsistent to say that's what Democrats do when we get power. This is what Republicans are for. They're for rewarding people like Elon Musk and Donald Trump and all these billionaires and making it easier for them to make the next billion. That's what they do with power. This is what we do with power, and we won't stop fighting until we level this playing field. That's not hard. It's also true, and it's not complicated.
We're with Charlie Bailey. He is the incoming chair, brand new chair at the Democratic Party of Georgia. Going to ask you about taking on this role and what it could have been, or what had it been like for somebody who had another full-time job along with your job before. And I want to give her some credit on that. So we'll do that in just a few. Going to take a quick break. We're with Charlie Bailey from Condesa Coffee. This is The Ron Show. Thank you so much for listening. More of that conversation on Georgia Now. Progressive Voices via TuneIn or wherever you podcast. Last June, I got to catch up with new Democratic Party Chair Charlie Bailey. I want to revisit that conversation in the aftermath of Tuesday night. Charlie Bailey, new chair of the Democratic Party of Georgia. That's a full-time job in and of itself. I don't know what it pays, and I hope it takes care of you because it's a hell of a job. It's, again, herding cats.
Yeah.
How on earth did Representative Nikema Williams do this job while also being my congresswoman at the same time? That had to be...
I mean, it must have been incredibly hard. I mean, you for anybody, Congress is a full-time job, and chairing this party in a state this large. And we talk about being a battleground state. Right. Yeah, but and being a battleground, obviously that carries a lot of responsibility, but also population and just the sheer size of it. We're the largest state east of the Mississippi.
Which we all learned in fourth grade.
Right. It's burned into our memory.
And the number of counties, my God.
Yeah. 159, second to Texas.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, I mean, it was a. I don't know how she could do it based on what I've having been doing. But there's been a lot of great work done by chairs in the past. Nikema, DuBose Porter before that, Jane Kidd. I mean, going back to Bobby Kahn and Dave Worley. We nobody is sui generis, right? We don't start from scratch with. We create everything. That's not the way it works. We got a lot of great work we're standing on, shoulders we're standing on moving forward.
But there were clearly some things, and again, I know you're going through the assessment process. There were clearly some things that were working within the state party and things that were not working within the state party. What do you think the things that were initiated in recent years that were actually paying dividends for the party that you noticed right away?
Well, I think we have I'll say just one example. We have a very good voter protection program, and the people of Georgia and Democrats should be proud of what we have. We've got 3 full-time people working voter protection. Our voter protection director is one of the best in the country, and we obviously the legislature, the Republicans in the legislature want to make it harder for people to vote, and so that makes it more important to have a voter protection department. And so we have a very good and robust, and if anyone has, any issues at all and any questions, they can always reach out to us, call the party, and we will help out. So I would point out that in particular being a very strong piece that I'm inheriting.
What do you think the biggest to-do list item was when you walked in, though? Or have you discovered that yet?
Well, I mean, any organization, the biggest to-do list or the biggest thing on the to-do list is always money.
Yeah.
What do you have?
Yeah.
Where has it been coming from? What are your income streams? What are your, what's your operational budget? What's going out every month? And then what are your outstanding debts or obligations? You really can't do anything at all until you get a firm handle on that. And so that's number one. That's the number one thing. And we're doing that right now, and that's part of the assessment, and which I hope to have done within the next 10 or so days.
What's the money situation been like since November, though? I mean, again, you can sense the palpable 90-day mourning period or so that happened after the election, and folks are starting to wake up. You see a lot of grassroots movements starting to sprout up again, and maybe they're collecting money. But is the state party itself able to continue operating?
Yeah, I mean, I think like a lot of groups, and I've had conversations with a number of others, whether they be, state parties or national folks. There was a dip, but we are seeing a bit of a uptick.
Okay,
and I think it probably does coincide with people understanding the danger to working people and our way of life in the American Republic, and they want to do something, and sometimes, and it's giving that money. To the state party, and let me just say, GeorgiaDemocrat.org. We accept accept all contributions. Giving that money is a big part of fighting back, because with that money, and we can talk about some of this, but we are going to be under my leadership here. We are going to be directly going at these Republicans and unseating them, and the truth is, Ron, that's the only job the state party has, which means it's my only job. That is to elect as many Democrats across the state as is humanly possible. Because if we don't do that, if you don't get power...
Yeah, results. We're a results-driven society, and folks don't want to give money until they see results, or that they want to know that their money delivers results.
Exactly, which is completely fair, and that's what I'm trying to... You probably got a question for this, but that's the confidence I'm trying to instill is that this is going to be a professional, serious operation, and we're going to be the best state party in the country.
I'm sitting here brainstorming this sort of thing, and we can talk about this off the air, actually, because I'm happy to help whenever possible, if possible or if needed. Behind the scenes, like, where does your money go? I didn't know you had 3 voter protection full-time. That's something that is an aha moment for, I think, a lot of folks to go, oh, so this isn't just giving money to the party and it going nowhere or going to yard sign. It actually goes to some things that are tangible, that are actually put to work for voters like me. Absolutely. And, so what we are building this into is an organization where,
we're doing a certain number of things that people are going to see, okay, right off the gate. I mean, communication would be one.
Welcome to the show, by the way.
Yes, and more is more. You know, I mean, I have, since I have been chair, which is about a month, I mean, I think I've done, 8 or 9 TV interviews, 7 or 8 radio interviews, 4 or 5 podcasts, and all across the state. Not, we've done TV in Savannah, TV in Columbus, talked to numerous papers, including some national outfits, Politico and New York Times. There is, my job as chair, like I said, is make sure that folks know who to blame. I mean, using the bullhorn that I have to hammer these Republicans. One of the reasons that you see in Georgia some of the Republican politicians having a little bit higher approval ratings than you might expect is because we have been consistently hammering them across all mediums, like over and over. People don't understand some of those stats that I cited to you. They have a feeling that they're being screwed, but they don't really know the specifics of the choices that in particular the Republicans in this state have done.
So I got to take a hard break. Come back. We'll pick up on that conversation with Charlie Bailey, Democratic Party of Georgia chair, when the Ron Show returns on America One Radio, Progressive Voices.
This is the Ron Show.
We're with Charlie Bailey, the brand new month into the job chair at the Democratic Party of Georgia. We're doing this from Condessa Coffee. I want to thank Anthony and the staff at Condessa again for hosting us for this conversation. So you guys announced an initiative yesterday that I think is pretty impactful and I think might actually get some folks off the sidelines who have thought about running for office before at the state level, but looked at the fundraising mechanism and thought, okay, this is just too much. If you want to elaborate on what it is you guys are doing with Vote Builder.
Sure. So Vote Builder, for those that don't know, is the gold standard in voter contact. Up until yesterday, it is something that every candidate got charged for. And
it ain't cheap.
It's not cheap at all. And we, the state party, charge them for it, and they sign a contract with us and all that kind of thing. What I announced yesterday is we're making Vote Builder access free for state legislative candidates and local candidates, so county commission, city council, school board, and then for statewide candidates and congressionals, we're giving them 25% off their Vote Builder access. And I said, while I was running for chair a number of times, and I said again, I'll say here, we don't exist to make money off of candidates. We, as in the state party, we exist to make sure they can get elected. Yeah. And I can't do, look, there's going to be targeted races, and we can talk about this because this is a big initiative of mine. There's going to be targeted races. We're spending several $100,000. I can't do that in every race. Hell, I can't do $25,000 in every race, But I can do some things for everybody, and this is one. And it really does matter, particularly when I'm going to make sure that there's a candidate. If we just talk about the legislature for a second, I'm going to make sure there's a candidate running in every single seat. And some of these seats, Ron, let's just be honest, like we're going to be asking people to do something not for themselves, but for something greater than themselves. Yeah. Because you ain't winning in an 80-20 seat. Yeah. That's not happening. But it is important. And so you're asking someone to make a personal sacrifice, for their family to make a personal sacrifice for the greater good of their fellow citizens, because as they are campaigning in that community, and I'm from rural Georgia,
it's an uphill slog there anyway. Yeah,
Harris County, they ain't no Democrat. There's a local Democrat. We don't have any Democrats represented in the legislature. But it's important to have people running, because when you're out in the community, say there's an extra 100 votes that you get to come out. Yeah. You multiply across the state. That's the difference of winning and losing for maybe a Senator John Ossoff. Yep. And so if we're going to be asking people to do that for the family, for the broader left of center, democratic, non-authoritarian family, whatever you want to call it.
The least you can do is give them the resources to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that is fantastic. What a great idea. I've been frustrated a lot, and we talked before I even started this. I started this podcast in the throes of divorce. My therapist helped me figure out that this is what I needed to do, something, get out of bed every morning. Right. So here we have this show, and this was in the heart of the Abrams second run for governor. And I was frustrated then, and I got frustrated last year when I saw the Harris Walz campaign touting the South Georgia bus tour. They went through Savannah. They went through Savannah and they stopped at a high school in the suburbs. That was not a South Georgia bus tour. Democrats, in my mind, have been afraid to leave the safe confines of the blue bubbles. You know, it was. I rarely then in 2022 saw Stacey Abrams leave Metro Atlanta. And lo and behold, I saw her and some other House and state legislative Democrats doing a town hall in Montezuma, and I thought, yes, you got to do this because, as you mentioned, those 100 votes you get in Harris County aren't going to win you anything in Harris County, but they may win you something at the state or federal level.
Right.
That's encouraging to see. I'm very encouraged to see that.
Yeah, we're going to be fighting all over the state, and for all the reasons you just said, it may not be. There's parts of rural Georgia where you're not in a swing district. Also, there are parts of rural Georgia that are absolutely in a swing district. Let me point out a couple right now. The House district down in the bottom southwest corner, represented by Gerald Green, a Republican, that is a district that Joe Biden won 53% in. The VP got 51.5, 51, something like that.
Sounds winnable to me.
That's a Democratic seat. And in fact, he used to be a Democrat. He switched parties. We're going to win that seat. Just north of him, Mike Choka sits in another seat. It's a little bit tougher, but that is a swing seat. So there are rural parts of this state that are absolutely in swing seats. But even those like my hometown, I say home county because where I grew up is between two towns, it's out in the country. But there are, there's a psychological impact of this. There are Democrats all over this state. And winning a county doesn't mean shit. Like, it doesn't matter whether you win a county or not. It only matters whether you're adding, net votes. And if, I went to the University of Georgia. Go Dogs. Big, football fan and everything. I was like, I ain't Kirby Smart. But the last I checked, if one team's on the field and the other team's in the daggum locker room, that team on the field is going to win.
Yeah.
If we ain't even on the field, we are just seeding votes. And it really makes me mad to hear about red parts of the state. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
There are people there that need a pediatrician in their communities. There are people there that need.
They're the ones being the most impacted
open.
by some of the cuts that are coming in this big, beautiful bill that we're talking about in Washington.
And the surest way to lose a vote, we want to say, okay, well, those are Trump voters, so we're just not going to talk to them. Well, the surest damn way to lose it
is to blow them off.
Is to not talk to them. Not to mention people that are traditionally Democrats. We don't talk to them. I mean, this is just human nature, right? Like, I mean, that is, you don't talk to somebody, you are telling them they don't matter. And you should not be surprised if they take that to heart.
That's why when I began this show in 2022, and I adore Stacey Abrams. I think she has done. You talk about voter protection and voter integrity. Like, she is so key to that in this state. And at the same time, it bothered me that she wouldn't go to a Vidalia, Georgia, or a Valdosta even, as safe as I think Valdosta is, and eviscerate some of the demonization from the right. People think a lot of Democrats in these red areas, they think of them as demonic. Oh, my gosh, Hillary Clinton is this, or Stacey Abrams is that. And if you go out and meet these people and shake their hands, they walk away going, she was actually really nice. She made a lot of sense. And I know it's one voter at a time, but that stuff adds up over time. So I'm encouraged to see that. I think what we're getting at here is. And
I will just say, it's hard sometimes because I was on the ballot both in 18 and 22.
That's right.
I was the AG nominee in 18. I was the lieutenant governor nominee in 22. And sometimes events blend together in my mind because of those two runs. I did campaign with Stacey and others outside of the state. I can't tell you whether we did more in 18 than we did in 22, but I just want to say I did personally see her outside of Atlanta in 22. I can't tell you is it more than 18 or not, but I just want to say, but I agree with your point just broadly about we need to be doing it more.
Sure.
And I will say this as well. So my sister lives in Decatur. My sister and my brother-in-law, and I love Decatur. I have so many friends in Decatur. So please, people in Decatur, do not take this. But
he said this off the air too. So go ahead.
You can go and stand right there, in Decatur by Brick Store or whatever, and on a Saturday, and you can meet a ton of people. and it's not really going to matter too much to them.
Not going to change the margins.
Because it's like it's also a bit of like, they see sometimes Senator Warnock walking around or whatever. Like, it's not as big a deal. Yeah. You go into Harris County, you go into Taylor County, you go in Sylvester, you show up. Mm-hmm. Who knows when the last time, a major Democratic candidate.
It's newsworthy.
It's a big deal. Yep. And like those places have weekly papers, I know, because my mother still gets the weekly paper, and everybody in Harris County gets the weekly paper. Yeah. And if you have a story in there that like a Democrat came and talked about opening, making sure hospitals get back open and folks get better education, that matters. Mm-hmm. It has an outsized impact. Yeah. Even if it's not a place where you have as many people as, say, the lovely enclave of Decatur, which we're also going to campaign in and everything else. But you get my point.
Yeah, no, totally. And so I think the overall message we're talking about here is messaging and marketing and marketability as well for the party. I mean, there is, again, when you leave this void for the other side to say what they're going to about not only themselves but the opposition that's not showing up, you're ceding the ground. Obviously, you're a savvy guy. You're a smart man. You know that in the last 50 years or so, we've seen this media shift where religious talk radio became conservative talk radio. The deconsolidation of the broadcast industry gave us Rush Limbaugh and Fox News and all that. And there is a media mechanism now that exists on the right that really doesn't on the left. I mean, they like to portray this narrative, well, the media is liberal. The media is, by and large, pretty much in the middle, but gets labeled as being, liberally biased because you and I both know facts, data, math, science, they all have a liberal bias. Unfortunately for the Republicans, that's just the way it is. But there really isn't that media mechanism. And to that end, do you see where there is outreach? Listen, I'm not sitting here trying to pat my own self on the back here, but been doing this show now for 2.5 years, mm-hmm. where there are now folks who are raising their hands and saying, happy to help you guys. Bring your candidates, put them on this show. Let me do a column with them. I want to do a Q&A. Are you seeing that across the state? You mentioned doing interviews on 7 or 8 radio stations. I couldn't name you 2 that are welcome or not right-wing talk that you could go on.
Yeah, I think generally a lot of people that are paying attention, whether it be candidates or folks that work in the space, understand a little bit of what you're saying, that, as the media ecosystem gets more and more dispersed, almost like by the day more and more dispersed, then you kind of have to try a lot of things. More is more. Get out there, and you never know. Like, it doesn't. Again, you ain't got to be James Carville to be like, hey, it would be a good thing to go on Pod Save America. Okay, well, yeah, it would be a good thing to go on like one of the largest podcasts.
But again, that's like going to Decatur versus going to a red.
But I think there is a general sense among folks that we need to get out as much as we can, and also an understanding that there is no silver bullet to this. There is no like, let me push the magic button that gets my message to everyone, and it is harder and harder to get that message out there. So it's hard. There's not an easy solution, but I do feel that people are feeling more and more, let me try other things to try to reach as many people outside of traditional ways of communicating that we can.
How do you help your candidates and at the party? I know you got time. Give you about 4 minutes here.
Yep.
How do you work to make sure that the party and your candidates are better prepared instead of being flat-footed on issues that come at them from the right, that paint them a certain way? I think in 2024 we saw, probably frustratingly on my part for sure, and maybe on yours as well, where an issue about gender-affirming care for trans prisoners. Blah. I mean, it was such a silly thing. I was like, that is crazy that this is even coming up, but. How do you help the party work to avoid being mischaracterized or caricaturized even for being so wildly, in one camp or the other that it repels voters along the margins without, by the way, alienating that marginalized target? The trans community felt very targeted by the right wing, but also didn't feel very, supported by the Democratic Party at the same time. And either way, the Democratic Party loses. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, I think we need to attack the Republicans for what they're doing, which is, the way that they have. This is not new.
Right.
They use cruelty to target what they perceive as, and in some ways are vulnerable members of society.
It was. I'm a gay man. It was the LGBTQ in 2004, and it got George W. Bush reelected.
Right. So we have to. I think people got to speak from their heart. I think they got to be authentic and say what it is they believe. But also, you always be on offense. Do not let them back you into anything and hit them back for, what? They want to talk about all this. At the same time, they are closing your hospitals around the state. At the same time, they're underfunding public education. At the same time, they're underfunding public safety. I know this as a former gang prosecutor. Right now, you've got years-long backlogs in the testing of rape kits at the GBI.
Wow.
You've got 10, 11-month backlogs in the testing of ballistics, which the result of that, Ron, is that there are people on the street that have, and I'm sorry to say this, but there are people on the street that have sexually assaulted people, that have raped people, that have shot people, and the only reason they're not in custody is because the Republicans under the Gold Dome underfund public safety because they don't give a shit about the people that are actually impacted by this. And so the people are not going to know that unless you tell them that.
That's right. That's something you take to the offensive right there. I didn't know that.
So you just turn. Yeah. You're always be hitting. James Carville's a friend of mine that I got introduced to in my last run for office. And, one thing he's always said is, do not accept the premise and always, every day, be on the attack. Show people you give a shit and hit these, hit figuratively, hit these people in the mouth. Yeah. Show the people that you're fighting for them and show them the consequences of Republican rule. So I think that's broadly speaking. Look, you got to speak from your heart, and that is always the advice. And you got to be honest and authentic about your values, but do not accept the premise and always be on offense.
Gotta love it, man. I'm ready to put on the chin strap and the helmet and go out there and fight with you too, man. I appreciate your time. One last question. Anybody who might be on the margins thinking about running for office and wondering what are the resources available to them, how do they reach out to the party, how do they get the ball rolling if that's something that interests them?
Go to our website at georgiademocrat.org. We're actually revamping the website right now. So very soon there'll be a new website and it will have a staff directory. But even right now, there is an email there that they can email and say whatever they want to say. I want to volunteer. I want to raise money. I'm looking at running for office. Whatever, right? Email that, and someone on my staff will get back with you, and we'll put you to work.
Glad to hear that. Charlie Bailey, the new Democratic Party chair here in the state of Georgia. Thank you so much for joining the Ron Show today. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Ron, for having me, man.
I want to thank Charlie Bailey and the Democratic Party of Georgia for joining us, new chair. So another op-ed dropped from another conservative in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution with advice for what the Democratic Party should do. Take it with a grain of salt, as I'm going to. His name is Benjamin Burnett, a businessman, Alpharetta, former city councilman, Republican, so take this as you will. He writes, I'm a proud conservative. Governor Brian Kemp may be the greatest Republican success story in the country. But I will self-profess I am not a team guy. I was not a fraternity guy. I will never be a country club guy. I'm a conservative, but I like people, even Democrats, he writes. What is happening in Washington, D.C. is a mess. The Republican Party is a runaway train. Since the 1990s, the Republican Party has claimed to be the party of fiscal conservatism. That was a lie before President Donald Trump, but it has become a bald-faced one during his second term in office. Governor Kemp returns rebates to taxpayers. President Trump has chosen to finance his tax cuts on generations that are not even alive yet. Burnett continues, inflation and the cost of living are the greatest fears to Americans. Concerns, not fears. Nothing in the short term will change that, but Trump is a gifted messenger. Trump is for you, Kamala is for they, them. He quotes, America bought it. It was the issue that drove Americans back to believing President Trump was the right fit for the presidency. Although I agree with President Trump's calling card message for the campaign, it is not the real issue facing America. Remember that he said that. Burnett writes this now. Even though the second term feels like a mess, the Democrats cannot find footing. If Donald Trump has taught us anything, it is that America does not believe in victimhood. So I'm here to give them the strategy. Again, we ripped on Jeff Duncan for a similar strategy a couple weeks ago, so take this with a grain of salt. Democrats should be honest with the American people about tariffs. Well, I think they have been. Free trade has enormous messaging power, but free trade at the expense of decimating our mid-sized cities and manufacturing, he asks? The world is more global than it was 40 years ago. Ross Perot said in the 1992 election cycle that NAFTA would be the end of American manufacturing in this country, and he was right. Democrats, manufacturing towns were your constituents. My grandparents lived off FDR's New Deal. How has NAFTA worked for Jackson, Mississippi, he asks. Dalton, Georgia is the textile capital of the world. It thrives because of immigrant labor. It voted 72% in favor of Donald Trump. This is a mixed conversation he's having. NAFTA sending jobs to other countries, but also immigrants working here in the textile manufacturing town of Dalton because the jobs were here. Anyway, but here is the hard part, Burnett writes, for Democrats. Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. They are a burden on this country's balance sheet. They are the real issue in 2025. They were the real issue in 2020. But saving them is a hero's calling. Everybody knows they can no longer continue as they once have, but Democrats should be the ones to say it aloud. The country is collectively successful because of the labor pool. You should not be able to sit at home and make more money than somebody who is working. That's a fallacy, Burnett, Mr. Burnett. Most people who are on those programs actually do work. Congress should not be able to finance Social Security through long-term debt. No, Congress should pay the debt back, Mr. Burnett. Democrats should also propose a responsible budget and make the Republicans play defense against insolvent math. Yes, now that I would agree with. If the Republicans are the party of fiscal responsibility, take that from them. He's correct. Democrats should. I just think we disagree on how they should do it. Stop talking about protecting hardened criminals in El Salvador. I think they're just talking about keeping people from being sent there illegally or incorrectly. He says it's not a winning message with Main Street. Disagree. The U.S. Department of Defense is the Republican hallmark special interest group, and its military has weakened compared to China. It is not weakened entirely because of diversity, equity, and inclusion. He is right. It is mostly weakened because the military cannot plan for the long term using congressional budget reconciliation. NVIDIA and Amazon cannot plan for their research and development every 9 months. Why should the nuclear-capable U.S. Navy? Republicans are leading us into budgetary problems, but the Democrats and their outlets would rather triple down on transgender athletes winning girls' track state championships in California, he asks. Here's where I'm going to point out that he, by the way, points out that that issue is mostly a non-issue. Hang tight. He goes, the race-baiting politics of the Democratic Party alienates so many people like me. Yes, a white guy from the suburbs who runs a business. Some self-awareness, Mr. Burnett. Who can be persuaded, he says. Okay, but maybe it's the GOP that's been targeting marginalized communities, minorities with their voter suppression tactics, and maybe, like, again, some self-awareness. I'd say the same to Jeff Duncan. The Democrats' desire to take Senate Bill 202 and make it a racial issue was ridiculous. We disagree. But Dems are right about plenty of things. I think having automatic weapons in civilian hands is nonsensical. Okay. A lot of women have no idea they are pregnant at 6 weeks. Okay. I do not believe Amazon and Microsoft should avoid paying federal income taxes. Okay. He goes, those issues mean more to me than the dozen transgender athletes in the NCAA. Then he just eviscerated his own argument. He goes, Senator Bernie Sanders and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez may have likes and clicks on social media, but they're not mainstream enough for a general election cycle. Except they're populist, and they're attracting a lot of mainstream Americans to their events and rallies. So maybe you're wrong. He finishes, there's an opportunity for Democrats to lead this country away from the fiscal cliff, and they should take the opportunity to do that. I don't disagree. A contrary plan is something that the Democrats, a Project 2029, just an idea, should concoct. He says this conservative is begging them to return to being a serious party. And that's fine. That's fine. I think he just has a completely wrong-headed idea about what that should be. He's looking for, like Jeff Duncan a couple of weeks ago in his op-ed, he's looking for GOP light, and I'm sorry, you need to go back, sir, with Jeff Duncan, there's two of you, power in numbers, and reclaim your party and bring it back to sanity. And then maybe from within your party, we could find some common ground on those issues that we do agree on that you spoke about. Automatic weapons, a woman's right to choose. Those are two issues, huge central issues that the GOP has used for the last 4 or 5 decades to win seats. So go back to your party, Mr. Burnett, reclaim your party, and then we'll come to the table at the state legislature, in the House, in the Senate, in the White House, and we'll find common ground on those issues, and I'm sure we can find common ground on some of those other budgetary issues that you spoke of as well. when Democrats aren't always on the defensive from those issues that you just cited we can find common ground on, or the transgender issue that you just said isn't that big of an issue. That'll do it for The Ron Show. My thanks to Charlie Bailey, Democratic Party of Georgia, for joining us. Condessa Coffee for hosting. We air 9 a.m., 5 p.m. weekdays on America One Radio, 11 p.m. Progressive Voices via TuneIn or wherever you podcast. Have a great weekend.